So hello everybody, welcome to the Clavichord here, another practicing session. I hope I fixed the digital issues of last practicing session. I have no idea, I think it's the computer's memory that for one reason or another wasn't willing to record the session properly. I decided to release it anyways because I know many of you are looking forward to these uploads. I'm practicing now the World Therapeutic Clavier, as you know, because I'm planning to record the entire book 1 on Clavichord. Not here in this room, but on this instrument will be taken back to his friends, to the pianoforte there, and the organ. The room there sounds perfect for recording piano, but certainly also for Clavichord. Anyways, that will happen. We have set a date. I'm going to update you soon. By the way, if you want to be updated on all the details of the projects that are ongoing, I know many of you ask me in the comment section. I can of course not reply to all of you, but I make monthly updates on Patreon. It's not to tease you to go to Patreon, but if you're really interested in knowing the ins and outs of the projects and want to be the first to know what our exciting plans are, because they are for 2022, that's the place for you to be. So as we speak, I'm still working on the setup here to record these practicing sessions for you. There is this really weird light. It's actually a beautiful light, but it's not a light that's supposed to be on the clavichord, but it works for now. I also am sitting in a chair that it's not supposed to be a chair that you practice on, but the chair that belongs to the clavichord here, we took it because we took back home because we recorded Alberto and I the 5th Symphony for the 4th time, which was a really nice experience. We had a lot of fun, we discovered a lot of new things, and we are talking about, of course, very small details that we quote unquote corrected or just took a slightly different approach. I mean, the third recording was okay, the second one was okay, even the one that's on YouTube, which is basically the first recording we did together, perhaps even, yeah, it might have been the first. So it's still a recording that we like. But of course, we have something in our minds, and we just re-recorded that symphony last week, and that's the reason why this chair is not here. We're going to release all of that 2022. Also for that, I'm going to make updates, but that's not what this practicing session is about. So, but knowing that I'm going to record now very soon, we made a decision, Alberto and I together. The release will be in the first half of 22. That means I'm going to record this for real in the month of January, early February. And so that means mentally I'm going to prepare for recording. It's something different than just for developing. If you plan for recording or for a concert, you have to finish your piece, at least temporarily. You have to make just decisions on how the outcome will be. And so I will be taking some of the more difficult, I wouldn't say problematic, but challenging pieces. For instance, the B-flat minor fugue is one of those. It's a piece, and I don't know if you can see right now the score. You should, but I'm trying to find some easy setup for you to follow along. You see, it's an open alla breve notation. And very open. I mean, even the eighth notes are not something that you can say like this. These are present everywhere. But the complexity here is also the five-voiced structure. And there is one instrument on which this is not a problem at all, or even not a challenge. That's of course the organ. If you play this on an organ, then you have of course the benefit of the length of tone, which you lose on the clavichord. You have a little bit more of length of tone. The sustain is a little bit longer on a harpsichord. But this is one of those pieces that, and I'm not sure, I don't know the history of every piece of the World Therapeutic Clavier. There have been written excellent books, and if you know more about this than me, please do share in the comment section. But this is one of those fugues, I believe, that I can imagine that Bach just took to complete his World Therapeutic Clavier 1. He wanted to have 24 platters and fugue. It was something that was in the air, and he was not even the first. So he collected older pieces, transposed them in other keys, and so on. B-flat minor is not a key that you connect to an organ in 1720-ish, because organs then, there is discussion about this, but they were much more conservative in general. tuned, conservatorily tuned compared to string instruments. Harpsichord might even be another chapter than the clavichord, because harpsichord was also, and maybe primarily, I don't know, used zum starken Musik, as was described in that time. So with orchestra, and orchestras that back then didn't play in C sharp minor, it's just on a solo instrument you would do that, as for instance the clavichord. So I'm not sure that in 1722 or whatever date, like in the 1720s, that B flat minor on an organ would sound that well. So Bach might have transposed this piece into another key. What I'm going to do now, but again, if you know the history of this piece, please let me know, let the community know in the comment section. It's maybe something we can do all more often than just ask you if you know more about the history of the pieces. So you cannot study everything. And playing this piece is already a challenge. It's really a challenge because on a stringed instrument, and even that would be also challenging on an organ, to not clarify the structure, but to, you know, make sure that you hear all the theme entrances and everything that's going on. And of the entire first book, I believe this is one of the most challenging of all of that on the clavichord. The B flat minor prelude as well has some challenges on the clavichord in just position playing. So all the rest is fine unless I find some other pieces. I will just update you when I'm practicing. But overall, this is a very difficult piece. So what I'm going to do now is just play it for you. And as always, I'm not prepared. So these practicing sessions are not polished. They're present to you raw material, including me. Describing myself as raw material is a little bit weird, but that's what it is right now. So I come from the pianoforte, Beethoven V. It's a completely different world than this instrument. I practiced the organ this morning, prepare for some album releases next year as well on the organ. And so now on the clavichord, and then B flat minor. For those of you who play the clavichord, know this is not an easy task, but challenging things we like. Let's see what we can do. And as always, I just start by listening to the instrument. I might fluctuate a little bit in tempo, I don't know, but my main purpose now is to play in a cantabile way, relaxed, and make sure that the notes sound right. And oftentimes the rest comes by itself. Let's see. Also here, it's very hard to play cantabile. Let's do it a little slower. The tempo was not bad, I think, but it's been a long time. I think the last time that I played this piece, so I want to make sure that all the notes are correct. This is a very difficult position on the clavichord. And you lose this on the organ. It would sound like this, eh? Also here, difficult position going into the key. So here, the section was written here. So this position of the thumb from the B flat is really making my life hard. Because I need to position my hand more forward than it's right actually with the clavichord. you have to release one of the notes. I could go here to 3-1 instead of 4-2 as I've written. It's not a bad solution. Let's see if I have a pencil here. So 4-2 is a very normal position on the clavichord, but this is not a normal piece. You can sometimes see when you practice Bach, and I have to take, when you practice Bach, and certainly here in cases where I cannot say I'm sure, but I wouldn't be surprised when this was a transposed piece from another key. That because you come into areas where it feels awkward in kind of quote-unquote historical fingering. This works. And so here, 1, 2, I want to avoid my first finger on this, because then I need to take my second finger on the C, which is really difficult. So the clavichord you need to play here. There's almost no option to play there. But then I have to jump, because I cannot play it with first finger. I believe the A flat. Maybe I should do that. So, concerning fingerings, I'm going over my already self-made fingerings again. And mainly also because this is a piece full of exceptions. I would never use this piece to teach anyone how to make, again, quote-unquote historical fingerings. I can justify the gap here because it's like you go from this chord and it's the first beat, so I can imagine having an articulation there. But it's a little brutal. From the D flat in that position with the fourth finger on the G flat, yeah, you can say like just substitute to the fifth. First of all, on the clavichord, that's not something that's easy, because you have to keep your notes steady. You cannot add weight to it because the note sounds on a higher, it starts to sound at a higher pitch. But also it's something that was not particularly done in that time, in that area, in the Bach circles. And so you can say, yeah, now whatever, fingering is personal. Not so sure. There is a certain logic there that if you discover it, will help you in playing the music. So this I can understand. I can also go to 5-3 right away. But then this doesn't make sense, because I need the second finger or the first on the A flat, because we're going down. And the second makes sense because then this note is in a very normal position, fourth finger. I have to jump with the same finger to the E flat, but that's not a problem. You have the natural accentuation there. Let's keep the second finger. Also, the practice of repeating notes is something that at that time was very normal. So, but I don't know how much I should do here. For instance, you have here a note. Some notes are 2 bars long connected, and perhaps even more. But the question is, do you repeat, for instance, here? This is what you hear now. Or do you play like this? You might say, well, it sounds okay, but the danger is in a polyphonic piece like that you lose the lines of the polyphony because you're repeating notes that are maybe not as prominent on that spot as you make them sound by repeating. On the other hand, what I like about it, and maybe the really harsh dissonance, I don't know if we should. I mean, this is really something that's up to the player, huh? Here the B flat. It sounds like a more a kind of basso continuo. It doesn't sound bad, but I'm not sure that I'm allowed to do this. I mean, it doesn't suddenly feel as a complex fugue anymore, and maybe that's part of the solution. I honestly, I mean, now we have a lot of options. By the way, if I miss some notes in the left hand, it's because I'm not relaxed enough in release, and I want to play them a little bit too much legato. In the Baroque ways, there's always a little bit of gap, but I mean, cantabile legato. But if you don't release, if you have difficult positions and you have difficult repositions, certainly in the clavichord, you'll be punished by wanting to prolong the note too much. The trick is to release here, very relaxed, release the key, and actually transpose your weight up to the next note, to the next position, I would say. That's a trick that always works, but in reality you have to be aware of that. Even for me, I mean, if I may say that I'm an experienced clavichord player, still there, certainly in the bass, you want to make use of the length of the notes. Obviously the sustain is much longer here than there, and that's a trap because you don't have time enough anymore to prepare for the attack of the next note. You cannot just land your hand on the note like potentially you could have on an organ in emergency cases or on a harpsichord. Here just it would result in a very awful sound, and if you go too hard into the keys, your clavichord will just be out of tune because you push the string like with a lot of force. Well, the question of repeating notes that are tied. If anyone says to you, "Well, Bach writes a slur and you don't honor the slur," that's not the problem. The slurs are there, like to say, this is one note and you do whatever you want with that. Obviously, on an organ, you don't need to repeat it, you don't do that. But on a string instrument or stringed instrument like over a keyboard, you can do that. The thing is, are we going to make use of arpeggios then? The great advantage is that the dissonances get a preparation again, like for instance here. This is okay, but if I play this is really hard. You could say like there's a cool effect, but I make it harder than it's written. Because on an organ you would have the B flat and the F already there, and this comes later. And it's different than this, but maybe if I arpeggiate a little bit. Oh, no substitution here, see, no safety measures. Certainly not for recordings. Jesus, here. Third finger. No, you have no option. You should play here. It is so hard. I think I have to do something there with arpeggiating and with repeat of note, and maybe there is no rule there. I mean, apart from the rule that you're quote unquote allowed to do that, but to have this practice that often and that prominent as in a fugue, it's, I don't know if there are examples of people who are doing that. Having the theme entrance a little early, of course, that's a typical. I don't use that often because it has a tendency so to be a little bit, we would call in Dutch manierisme. So maybe that's the same term in English, like overdo something. And often, when people do that often, it's too much. But when you, also because then it's like just an anticipation, which is also something you can do but not overdo. But arpeggiating is something else. It's really something else, and this makes also these long notes easier on an instrument like a clavichord. And also it makes it easier to play because you can reposition your hand when you play difficult positions, because you release the note. This is okay, I think. Still, this is so weird on clavichord with Bach. This D flat. It's complex here. That went well, that second page. So in a way, the difference between the first page and this one is here. So being relaxed a little bit more. And relax is maybe not really the right term. It's so. Let's not make this into a lesson or this practicing session, but maybe I know many of you are interested in just knowing the details. When you play on a clavichord, why it's called the mother of keyboard instruments? Because you have to have a perfect combination or balance between being relaxed, but also know when you have to. So relaxed means you have the weight of your arm in the key, but you have to also put relieve the key of the weight of the arm, because you have to release the keys. And so in combination with that, you have all the gradations, do you say that? Grades of from relaxed to a little bit more, I wouldn't say stiff, it's more rigid. So you never do this, of course not, because then you cannot play anymore. But that from 0 to 100 and back, in combination with finger speed. So once you master that, you can go to the harpsichord. That's done pretty easy, because there you still hear the difference. I mean, J.S.Bach writes that, so it's not my word, but I mean, you can hear the difference, because when you do the same on an instrument that it's not as sensitive in that regard as the clavichord, you still hear that. It's the same on an organ, and it's the same on the fortepiano, where it's maybe the reversed. So what I mean by that, when you apply quite a lot of arm weight on the clavichord, because otherwise you don't have sound. It sounds real like that. I mean, people are not used to play on the clavichord, even harpsichord players, but also organists, they have the tendency to do that. Pianists in general make easier good tone, because they're used to have this connection with the instrument, like audible correction, but I mean, I'm digressing from that now. You need a lot of arm weight. On the fortepiano, it's the reverse. You still have the same principles, arm weight and finger speed, but you have a lighter touch in many instances, because if you do this on my fortepiano at home, it sounds like you want to overpower the tone. You have also the hammer is much faster than the tangent of the clavichord. So there is a combination of relaxed feeling, relaxed wrist, which goes directly hand in hand with arm weight. Your body that's participating. That's the reason why a chair like this is really unbelievably bad, because it invites you to go like this, and you have to go in the instrument, any keyboard instrument. But there are grades for that, and so on the clavichord you learn that. The second page, I was a little bit, I would say like, at the first page I was like 80% going into, or grade 80 going into the key, arm weight, which led to some mistakes in the left hand, as I was explaining to you earlier. Here I reduced that to, I don't know, 40. So I would slide or pianoforte clavichord, I went more to this, like a little lighter touch, and that works. And I cannot explain why it works. If I would write an article about the technique necessary to play this on clavichord, and I would not try it, but just from my memory playing the clavichord, I might not come to that solution, which is kind of weird, right? Why? Because the hand positions are so difficult, and when your hand position is difficult, the only way you can still make a sound is by just putting the slider more to the clavichord side and make your touch a little bit more heavy. Not in the sense of going louder necessarily, but preparation is there, everything. You go really in the key. And that allows you to play like very, 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 like even here, but that's extreme. And I sometimes think I can do it because I'm so used to play the clavichord, but normally you don't make sound here. It's like this. So it's a little bit counterintuitive, but I'm really happy that we had this session together, because I will experiment a little bit more with this. If it's provocative, I mean, it's like that. I know in the world of hip, you don't go off-road, but and maybe this is something that's really not done, but if it makes it sound better and if it helps the piece, I'm not so sure that it is a bad solution. And certainly not overdo this. You cannot imagine how much this little arpeggio helps me playing this chord. Especially preparing here this hand position. I need to turn. That's my phone. I'm sorry. But it's good that it works because I have a Zoom meeting in 5 minutes. So we need to wrap this session up. But I'm coming back to this piece maybe in another practicing session. But guys, this was important for me. And it's maybe not the arpeggiation is not even the right word, but you know what I mean. Is maybe not something that needs to happen often, but just the idea that it can happen loosens this a little bit. It gets me rid of the idea that I need to play everything like super deep in the key and hold as long as possible. It's a little trick actually, but it works really well. Also, I can make some differences in sound suddenly. What's here? Theme entrance, eh? Relax, relax, relax. I mean, quarter note, every release. If I don't relax, you hear like this. Exaggerating, but you make you hear the difference. It's even for me a surprise right now how cantabile this sounds. And legato. Again, not legato in the modern sense, but a kind of cantabile legato. Super relaxed here, super relaxed. So a lot of weight, but not too much. You can also be relaxed and still have your hand position a little bit higher. So this is different from this, is different from this. That's the clavichord. But I have to go, really, because 2:30 is a deadline. By the way, this works also on the fortepiano, this difference. We were working on the theme of the Fifth Symphony, just the release of the pom 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 pom. The release of the G is so important. Again, the slider, 100 to the 0. Where do you put your wrist? Are you going to release like this? Like this? It's unbelievable. And the fortepiano reacts to that like it's a different world. So this is really important. So I'm happy with the session. Hope you're too. I'm going to continue practicing. I have no idea. I mean, recording practicing sessions, that's what I mean. I have no idea what I'm going to do during the recording of the Wohltemperiertes Klavier. Maybe do also some lives there. I have no idea. Stay tuned for that. In order to present you with some material behind the scenes. Anyways, that's a huge project that's been put forward. Suddenly, it was supposed to be in the second half of next year, but we're going to work on that earlier. And I'm quite happy with that. So stay tuned. And other than that, hope you liked the session. And if you did and you've not subscribed yet, do subscribe to the channel, and then we see each other very soon again. Bye.